Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever noticed that jealous people don't throw punches, they throw words? They'll smile at you and say, "You've changed." They'll whisper, "It won't last." They'll laugh and tell you, "You just got lucky." But listen closely, those aren't just words, they are confessions. Every phrase a jealous person uses isn't about you, it's about the limits they've placed on themselves. And the moment you understand this, their words lose power and your fire becomes unstoppable. When people become jealous of you, they often reveal it not through grand actions, but through the little words they slip into conversations. Pay attention, because their words will always betray their emotions. Jealousy is a quiet poison. It hides behind fake smiles, half-hearted compliments, and subtle comments designed to shake your confidence. And when you step into your power, when you start shining brighter than they expected, those same people begin to use language that exposes their insecurity. You'll hear them say, "You've changed." They don't mean it as a compliment. What they really mean is that you are no longer the person who made them feel comfortable in their own mediocrity. They don't recognize you anymore because you refuse to stay small. Growth, evolution, transformation, these things unsettle people who have chosen to remain where they are. When someone tells you that you've changed, take it as confirmation that you're on the right path. Change is proof of courage. It means you're no longer living in the shadow of other people's expectations. Then there's the phrase, "It must be nice." Those words are often laced with bitterness. Instead of celebrating your success, they frame it as though luck, privilege, or circumstance delivered it to you effortlessly. They say, "It must be nice," as if your discipline, your sacrifices, your late nights, and your relentless work don't exist. What they can't admit is that what you have feels like a mirror reflecting back what they haven't been willing to do. And it's easier for them to diminish your success than confront their own choices. You'll also hear, "You think you're better than us." Notice that word, think. It's not that you actually said you were better. It's that your progress makes them feel smaller in comparison. Your achievements shine a light on what they left undone. Your courage highlights their hesitation. This accusation isn't about arrogance on your part. It's about insecurity on theirs. They want to trap you in guilt, to make you shrink so they can feel comfortable again. But you are not responsible for their comfort. You are responsible for living your potential. Another phrase they lean on is, "You got lucky." People who are jealous rarely want to acknowledge effort, consistency, or vision. They need to believe that your results came from chance, because admitting that it came from dedication would force them to reflect on their own lack of action. Luck becomes their way of explaining away your persistence. But deep down, they know it wasn't luck. They know you showed up when you didn't feel like it, worked when no one was watching, and sacrificed pleasures they weren't willing to give up. Listen for the words, "It won't last." That's their way of soothing themselves, convincing their minds that your success is temporary, that somehow life will bring you back down to where they are. They want to believe that everything you're building is fragile because it comforts them. But let me tell you this, nothing built with discipline, consistency, and intention collapses easily. What doesn't last are the shortcuts, the half-hearted attempts, and the empty promises they tell themselves year after year. And then there's the sly comment, "You're just lucky someone noticed you." This is a dagger wrapped in casual words. It implies you're not capable, that your work didn't speak for itself, that someone just gave you an opportunity. They can't admit that talent, preparation, and grit made you visible. They can't admit that you positioned yourself through relentless effort. To them, it has to be about someone else giving you a hand, because the idea of you creating your own path makes them too uncomfortable. One of the most common phrases they'll throw at you is, "You're so full of yourself." This is what jealous people say when you finally learn to celebrate your wins, speak confidently, and hold your head high. They're not used to seeing you proud, they're used to seeing you quiet and small. Confidence, to the insecure, looks like arrogance. Self-belief, to the unmotivated, feels threatening. But never mistake their discomfort for truth. Being full of yourself is not a flaw. It's a necessity if you want to step fully into your potential. Sometimes they'll whisper, You don't deserve it. Whether they say it directly or indirectly, these words are designed to cut deep. They want you to question your worth, to second guess the place you've earned. But understand this: people project their own feelings of inadequacy onto you. When they feel undeserving in their own life, they convince themselves you must feel the same. But the truth is, you do deserve it. You deserve it because you showed up, because you endured, because you stayed the course when most people quit. Another common one. You're lucky you had help. As if asking for help or collaborating somehow invalidates your effort. What they forget is that everyone who achieves anything worthwhile does it with the support of others. No one climbs mountains alone. Jealous people want to frame your journey as if you didn't earn it, as if someone else handed you the victory. But needing help doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. It means you understood the value of learning, guidance, and mentorship. And pay attention when they say, "Don't forget where you came from." On the surface, it sounds like advice. But more often than not, it's a subtle way of reminding you not to rise too high, not to separate yourself too much from the version of you they were comfortable with. It's their way of tethering you to your past, so they don't have to face the discomfort of your growth. Of course, remember your roots. But don't confuse remembering with remaining. Growth means moving beyond the place you started. You're just showing off. That's what they'll say when you share your accomplishments. But notice, if you were failing, they wouldn't accuse you of showing off your struggles. It's only when you shine that they feel the need to put a negative label on it. Sharing your progress is not arrogance, it's testimony. It's proof that growth is possible. But to those who aren't moving, your light feels like a spotlight on their stillness. Finally, listen for the phrase, "We'll see how long this lasts." It's a challenge disguised as a prediction. They want you to doubt your ability to sustain success. But what they don't know is that you've built yourself from the inside out. They don't see the hours of discipline. They don't feel the resilience you've developed. They don't understand the mindset you've cultivated. To them, success is fleeting. To you, it's inevitable. Jealous people will always try to use words as weapons. They'll disguise envy as advice, dress insecurity as concern, and mask bitterness as humor. But their words are never about you. They're about what they see, or don't see, within themselves. When you hear those phrases, let them be your confirmation. Let them remind you that your growth is real, your success is visible, and your light is too bright to be ignored. Would you like me to make this more story-driven and personal, like she often speaks in her talks, with small, real, lifestyle examples woven into it? And every time you hear those words, pause and recognize what's really happening. Their comments are not walls meant to stop you. They are mirrors reflecting their own fears. They are revealing what they believe about themselves, not what is true about you. When someone says, "It won't last," what they're really saying is, "I don't believe I could make something last." When they say, "You got lucky," they are really admitting, "I don't think I could put in the effort." When they say, "You've changed," they're confessing, "I'm afraid of being left behind." That's why you must never let their words anchor you down. People who are threatened by your light will always try to dim it, not because they hate you, but because your courage highlights their hesitation. When you walk into a room with confidence, the insecure will always whisper. When you set boundaries, the ones who benefited from your lack of boundaries will always complain. And when you rise, the ones who stayed sitting will always criticize. This is the nature of growth. Think about it. No one who is above you, no one who is focused on their own vision, no one who is building something extraordinary, will stop to throw those phrases at you. The people who are moving, who are climbing, who are expanding, don't have time for jealousy. They are too busy creating their own life. The only ones who say those words are the ones who secretly wish they were doing what you're doing. Sometimes, they will wrap their jealousy in the disguise of advice. They'll say, "Don't get too carried away." What they really mean is, "Don't go further than me." They'll warn you, "Don't put all your energy into this. You might get disappointed." What they're actually revealing is, "I never had the courage to give my all, so I need to make you doubt giving yours." They'll say, play it safe. But what they're really saying is, I stayed safe and now I regret it. Their words are not about protecting you. Their words are about protecting themselves from the discomfort of watching you win. And then there are those who will call you lucky to have time. They'll say, I do it too, but I don't have the time like you do. Notice how jealousy dresses itself up as excuses. They don't realize that you carved out the time. You sacrificed distractions, you chose discipline over convenience. Time is created by priorities and your choices created your path. What they really mean is, I wasn't willing to trade comfort for progress. Jealous people will also minimize your effort by pointing out what they believe are flaws. They'll say, anyone can do that. If that were true, then why haven't they? They'll say, that's nothing special. But the truth is, it's not about the uniqueness of what you do, it's about the courage to actually do it. Many people have ideas, few execute them. Many dream, few pursue. Many talk, few act. And those who fail to act will always find a way to dismiss the ones who do. You'll even hear, you're obsessed. This is one of their favorite disguises. They'll frame your focus, your dedication, your discipline as a problem. But obsession is just the name lazy people give to consistency. They'll say it because they want you to believe that balance means being average in everything. But true greatness requires seasons of obsession. True change requires seasons where you're willing to put everything on the line for what you believe in. Don't let their labels make you doubt your commitment. Another phrase you'll encounter is, you're not the same person anymore. They'll make it sound like a betrayal. But remember, the whole point of life is not to remain the same, it's to evolve. If you were the same person you were 5 years ago, that would mean you didn't grow, didn't stretch, didn't break patterns. Their discomfort comes from the fact that your evolution requires them to face the truth that they've stayed the same. And rather than confront that truth, they project it onto you as criticism. Sometimes jealousy comes in the form of backhanded compliments. Whoa, I didn't think you could pull that off. On the surface, it sounds like praise. But underneath, it reveals doubt. It tells you they never believed in you, and now your success has surprised them. Another one, I guess you finally got it right. Again disguised as encouragement but rooted in envy. Instead of celebrating your persistence, they frame it as accidental success. And then there's the classic line, don't let it get to your head. They want to police your confidence. They want to make sure you don't get too comfortable in your new power. But confidence is not arrogance. Confidence is a reflection of the work you've done, the battles you've won, the storms you've endured. People who haven't done the work will always call confidence arrogance, because it reminds them of the voice they silence within themselves. Jealousy doesn't always come loudly. Sometimes it comes softly with silence. They won't say congratulations. They won't clap. They won't acknowledge your progress. They'll watch, they'll scroll, they'll notice. But they won't support. Their silence is their way of withholding validation, hoping it will starve your spirit. But you don't need their applause. You don't need their approval. Your worth was never meant to be measured by their reactions. And sometimes, the most jealous words come not from others, but from inside your own head. That little voice that says, you don't deserve this. You're not ready. Who do you think you are? Recognize that this inner critic is just the echo of every jealous phrase you've ever heard. The difference is that now, you must learn to answer it. When your mind says, you got lucky, remind yourself of the hours you invested. When your mind whispers, it won't last, remind yourself of the resilience you've built. When your mind tells you, you've changed, answer proudly, yes I have, and I will continue to. The truth is, jealousy will always be present when you rise. It is a byproduct of visibility. The moment you step into your potential, you will trigger people who chose not to step into theirs. But every jealous phrase, every dismissive comment, every backhanded compliment, is proof that you are moving. It's proof that you are no longer invisible. It's proof that your presence carries weight. So when they say, it must be nice, you smile because you know it wasn't luck. It was sacrifice. When they say, you've changed, you nod because you know growth is the goal. When they say, you think you're better, You stand tall because you know you're simply becoming the best version of yourself. When they say, "It won't last," you keep building because you know what's built on discipline doesn't crumble. When they stay silent, you keep shining because you never needed their validation to begin with. Because in the end, their words are not chains. They are confirmations. They confirm your progress, your visibility, your courage. They confirm that you dared to do what others only think about. They confirm that you are no longer living small. And every phrase they throw at you, every attempt to diminish you, is nothing more than a reflection of the limits they placed on themselves. And here is what you must remember every single time. Their words only carry power if you accept them. A jealous phrase, no matter how sharp, cannot cut you unless you let it enter your mind. It's like someone handing you a gift you never wanted. If you don't take it, it doesn't belong to you. The moment you stop giving their words permission to live inside you, they lose their strength. They become nothing more than noise in the distance. But what often happens is that people carry those phrases around like heavy stones. Someone once said, "You don't deserve it," and years later, they still replay it in their heads. Someone once whispered, "It won't last." And now every time they face a challenge, that echo comes back. This is how jealousy spreads, through repetition. They plant seeds of doubt, and if you water those seeds with attention, they grow. But if you starve them, if you ignore them, they wither. That's why you need to guard your inner dialogue with the same intensity you guard your dreams. When someone tells you, "You just got lucky," turn that phrase into fuel. Remind yourself of the nights you stayed awake working when no one else knew. Remind yourself of the sacrifices that never made it to social media. Turn their disbelief into proof that they never saw the full picture, but you did. There will also be moments when jealousy takes the form of comparison. They'll say things like, "So, and so did it better," or "Other people are way ahead of you." Their goal is to make you measure your worth against someone else's highlight reel. But remember, comparison is the tool of the insecure. No one who is truly fulfilled in their own path needs to measure yours. They use comparison because they cannot compete with your consistency, so they try to distract you with someone else's journey. But your journey is yours. Your timeline is yours. And the only person you're in competition with is the person you were yesterday. Sometimes jealousy will even come from the people closest to you. Family, friends, colleagues. Not because they hate you, but because your growth disrupts the dynamic they're comfortable with. They'll say, "Don't forget about us," or "You're too busy for us now." They'll disguise guilt as love. But what they're really saying is, "I'm afraid of losing the version of you I used to know." And the truth is, you cannot shrink yourself to fit into an old space you've outgrown. Love does not mean staying small. Love means continuing to grow and trusting that those who truly value you will grow with you. Pay attention, too, to the sarcasm. Jealous people often wrap their envy in humor. They'll laugh and say things like, "Look at the superstar," or "Don't forget us little people when you're famous." Everyone laughs, but underneath, there's discomfort. They use humor because it's safer than admitting their insecurity. But if you listen carefully, you'll hear the truth beneath the joke. And instead of letting it sting, recognize it for what it is, acknowledgement that you're rising. There will also be moments when they question your intentions. Why are you doing this? Who do you think you're trying to impress? What they don't understand is that you're not living to impress anyone. You're living to fulfill your potential. But because they cannot see beyond the surface, they assume your actions are for validation. They cannot grasp that you're operating from purpose. That's the thing about jealous minds. They cannot imagine motivations higher than their own. And notice this, when you fail, they'll go silent. But when you succeed, they'll suddenly find their voices. When you stumble, they won't comfort you. But when you rise, they'll have endless things to say. This reveals their true nature. They don't want to see you fall because they care about you. They want to see you fall because it makes them feel better about staying where they are. But every time you rise after falling, every time you continue despite their whispers, you prove them wrong in the most powerful way possible. By refusing to quit. Jealousy also reveals itself in the way they try to rewrite your story. They'll say things like, "You had connections," or "You were in the right place at the right time." They rewrite your journey because admitting the truth, that you built it through perseverance, forces them to confront their own lack of action. They cannot handle the idea that you are living proof of what discipline and courage can create. So instead, they create a version of your story that makes them feel better. But their version isn't the truth. You know the truth, you lived it. And you must be careful, because if you're not strong, their words can plant doubt. Doubt is dangerous. Doubt whispers, maybe they're right. Doubt convinces you to slow down, to play small, to second-guess yourself. But here's the reality: people who speak from jealousy are not prophets. They're not predictors of your future. They are reflections of their own limits. So when they say, "It won't last," they're not predicting your outcome. They're describing their own. What you have to do is learn to translate their words. Every jealous phrase has a hidden meaning. When they say, "You've changed," translate it to, "I'm uncomfortable with your growth." When they say, "It must be nice," translate it to, "I wish I had the courage to do the same." When they say, "You got lucky," translate it to, "I can't imagine working that hard." When they say, "It won't last," translate it to, "I've never been able to sustain progress myself." Learn this language and you'll never be fooled again. But here's the key. Do not waste your energy trying to prove them wrong with arguments. You don't need to explain your worth. You don't need to justify your path. The best response to jealousy is consistency. Keep building, keep growing, keep showing up. Let your results speak. Because over time, nothing silences a jealous voice more than undeniable progress. And do not expect their words to stop. They won't. Every new level of your journey will reveal a new form of jealousy. As you grow, as you succeed, as you evolve, the words may change, but the energy behind them will remain the same. They will always find something to say. But if you wait for their approval, you'll never move. If you wait for their support, you'll stay stuck. Growth requires you to keep walking, even when the crowd whispers. Think about history. Every person who achieved something extraordinary faced jealousy. Every innovator, every leader, every creator, every pioneer heard those same words. "It won't work. You're not good enough. Who do you think you are?" Those phrases are recycled generation after generation. They are the soundtrack of small minds watching greatness unfold. And yet, those who ignored them changed the world. So, what will you do when you hear them? Will you shrink? Will you retreat? Or will you recognize them for what they are? Proof that you are moving in the right direction. Because jealous people don't talk about those who are invisible. They don't waste energy on those who stay small. They only aim their words at those who are rising. Which means, if they're talking about you, it's because you're worth talking about. And that's why the next time someone says, "You've changed," you nod and say, "Yes, I have." The next time someone says, "You got lucky," you smile because you know it wasn't luck. It was persistence. The next time someone says, "It won't last," you keep going. Because lasting is built in every step you've already taken. And the next time they stay silent, you remind yourself that their silence is not your signal to stop, but their confession that your light is too bright for them to acknowledge. Because here's the truth. The very phrases that come from jealous mouths are the markers that you're stepping into a version of yourself that no longer asks for permission. If no one is whispering, it's because you're still blending in. If no one is questioning you, it's because you're still playing safe. Jealous words are the price of standing out, and you must learn to wear them like armor. They are not there to weaken you. They are there to remind you that you've entered territory most people never dare to walk. But let's go deeper. Jealous people don't just speak about you. They also try to predict your failure. They'll say, "Just wait, you'll see." It's their way of trying to create doubt in your future. But remember, they're not prophets. Their words are not predictions. They are simply projecting their own pattern of quitting, of giving up, of stopping halfway. They're not saying you will fail. They're confessing that they would fail if they were in your place. When you understand this, their words lose their sting. Sometimes their jealousy will come disguised as kindness. They'll say, "I just don't want to see you get hurt," or "I'm only saying this because I care." But listen closely. The tone reveals the truth. It isn't care, it's control. They're uncomfortable with the risks you're taking because your risks remind them of the risks they never took. They'll wrap jealousy in the costume of concern, but you'll feel the difference. Genuine care supports your growth, even if it's risky. Jealousy hides under concern because it wants to keep you from outgrowing them. Another thing they'll say is, "You've gotten lucky with timing." As if the moment you're living now just fell from the sky. What they don't see is that timing only favors those who prepare. They don't realize that opportunity knocks on every door, but only those who are ready can answer. Timing without preparation is wasted. Timing with preparation looks like luck to those who weren't ready themselves. You may also hear, "You're too ambitious." Think about that for a moment. Too ambitious. What they're really saying is, "Your ambition makes me uncomfortable because it highlights my lack of it." They'll try to convince you that ambition is greed, that wanting more is selfish. But ambition is not greed. Ambition is hunger for your potential. And if someone calls you too ambitious, wear it like a medal. It means you've tapped into something bigger than their limited vision. Sometimes they'll even try to rewrite your personality. They'll say, "You're not the same person anymore, you're acting different." And you know what? They're right. You are acting different. You're acting like the person who finally values their time. You're acting like the person who no longer settles for crumbs. You're acting like the person who dares to want more. They'll frame this as negative because your growth creates distance. But that's the nature of growth. You can't stay in the same place and rise at the same time. One of the most subtle jealous phrases you'll hear is, "You make it look easy." What they don't realize is that it only looks easy because they never saw the struggle. They never saw the nights you questioned everything, the mornings you didn't feel strong enough, the sacrifices you made behind closed doors. They think it's easy because they only see the result, not the process. And that's the way it will always be. The struggle is invisible, the success is visible. And what they call easy, was earned with every ounce of effort you had. Another common one, not everyone gets those chances. They'll use this to downplay your work, to make it seem like opportunities just landed in your lap. What they don't understand is that opportunities are not given. They are created. You created them by showing up, by being consistent, by putting yourself in places where opportunity could find you. Saying, "Not everyone gets those chances," is just their way of saying, "I never positioned myself for those chances." There's also the phrase, "You're just lucky people noticed you." This one stings if you're not prepared for it, because it makes it seem like you were chosen at random. But visibility is never random. People notice consistency. People notice persistence. People notice energy. You weren't lucky to be noticed. You made yourself visible through discipline. The ones who say that are still hiding, waiting for someone to discover them, while you were already building yourself into someone worth discovering. Sometimes they'll even suggest that your success is temporary by saying, "Enjoy it while it lasts." But here's the secret. They're not talking to you. They're talking to themselves. They're trying to convince themselves that they don't need to try because your success will fade. But you know the truth. What's built on daily discipline doesn't vanish. What's built on values, on vision, on consistency doesn't disappear. So when they say, "Enjoy it while it lasts," translate it into, "I don't believe in my own ability to create something that lasts." And then there's the heavy one, "You don't deserve it." That's the phrase they use when their jealousy reaches its peak. But let me tell you something, you deserve every bit of what you earn. Not because you're entitled to it, but because you showed up for it. You put in the work, you faced the doubt, you kept going when it was easier to quit. Deserving doesn't mean it was handed to you. Deserving means you did the work required to claim it. And when someone tells you that you don't deserve it, what they're really saying is, "I don't feel deserving in my own life." At times, they'll try to drag your past into your present. They'll say things like, I remember when you used to be this way, or don't forget who you were. But here's the thing, your past doesn't disqualify your present. Your mistakes don't cancel out your progress. The fact that you once lived in a smaller version of yourself doesn't mean you need to stay there forever. Jealous people use your past to chain you down because they can't handle the height of your present. But you owe it to yourself to keep climbing, regardless of the weight of their words. And watch out for the subtle phrase, "You think you're special." They'll throw this at you like an insult. But let me remind you, every person who has ever created something meaningful believed they were capable of something more. Believing you're special isn't arrogance. It's vision. It's the willingness to see yourself as capable of more than the limits others accept. So when someone accuses you of thinking you're special, take it as confirmation that you've stepped into the truth of your potential. They'll also say, "You always want more. Nothing's ever enough for you." They want to make you feel guilty for refusing to settle. But wanting more doesn't mean you're ungrateful. Gratitude and ambition can exist together. You can be deeply thankful for what you have and still hungry for what's next. People who settle will never understand this balance, so they'll frame your hunger as greed. But your hunger is sacred. It's the fire that keeps you moving forward. And perhaps the most cutting phrase you'll ever hear, "You'll regret it." That's jealousy trying to plant fear in your mind. They want you to believe that chasing your dreams will lead to failure, pain, embarrassment. But the truth is, the only real regret is never trying. The only real regret is living a life shaped by other people's limits. When they say, "You'll regret it," what they're really saying is, "I regret not trying." And that is their burden, not yours. So you see, every phrase, every whisper, every comment has a hidden meaning. Jealous words are never about you. They're about the insecurities, the fears, the regrets of the person speaking them. And the moment you stop taking them personally, you take back your power, because their words cannot define you unless you let them. Their jealousy cannot limit you unless you choose to shrink for their comfort. And you are not here to live a life small enough to fit inside someone else's insecurities.